One, welcome. Thanks for taking part of your Sunday to come out and do You Can Play. I can't emphasize to you enough, and I think we all really had a learning experience last year with the unfortunate occurrence of one of our baseball players and Coach Sean McKinney. And I have to tell you, I give huge kudos, and Sean, I want you to step out, and we owe you a big round of applause for him stepping up and kind of taking the steps he's taking on behalf of himself and this university. So Sean McKinney. But as we start, and I think you're going to enjoy these panelists and the folks that are here today to make this point to you. But I want to make one point to you, and that is that as part of that, and if you watched, and some of you probably didn't read all the news articles, but you reflect on the fact that 1 in 10, and I'm sure the statistics can vary, 1 in 10 people in our country, people in this room, are LGBTQ. And what was most sobering to me in those baseball stories were the players saying, gosh, had I known he was, I never would have, and I feel really bad. And the point is, you can't know, nor are you necessarily entitled to know. And so I think the point of this program is for you just to be thoughtful about all of that and really understand that there's a lot of differences in this room, and I will wager a bet that there is at least one, if not more than one player on all of our teams that you need to be thoughtful about. So without any further ado, we're going to hear from a former Mav, and then we'll kick it over to the panel. But thank you all for coming out this morning, or this afternoon.
Hi, this is former Maverick and NFL player Wade Davis, and I just want to say thank you all so much for welcoming the You Can Play project into the Colorado Mesa University family. As an organization, we're dedicated to ensuring that all lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer athletes have a safe and affirming space in sports. Now, I'm an openly and proud gay man now, but in high school, I was afraid. I was afraid to be my true and authentic self, and that manifested itself in me being a bully. Because I was struggling with so much internalized homophobia and shame, I used my words and my privilege and power to terrorize those whose gender identity, whose gender expression, whose sexual orientation didn't match what I deemed acceptable. And that's why I'm so grateful now to be a part of an organization that's doing the work to change that. Now, for all of you coaches and straight allies, I have a favor to ask. I want to make sure that when you're talking about this issue, that you feel confident to say the words lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender. Your LGBT brothers and sisters need to hear you say those words. To all of my LGBT friends, I implore you all to find one person that allows you to be your true and authentic self for even a second. It'll be so freeing. Again, thank you all so much for welcoming us, and have a great day.
Hello, everybody. My name is Glenn Whitman, and I'm one of the co-founders of the You Can Play project. Again, I know it's Sunday, and what we're going to talk about is not the easiest of stuff, so just hang in there, and we got some great athletes up here. We're going to help kind of work our way through this. So I have a question for you. How many of you have ever told a lie? I want to see a few hands. I know we all have, probably. Well, how long did that lie last for? Was it a day? A week? A year? I had a lie that lasted 28 years. And it was probably some of the most difficult years of my life. I was the captain of my football team. I played ice hockey, 2 teams, the high school team and the travel team. I played baseball. I played a lot of sports. But I wasn't truthful to my teammates, my family, my friends, and it was really difficult. When I came out at 28 years old, this cloud just kind of lifted, and I felt relieved. I could be myself. I became a better person. I was able to play sports better. I just felt so much more confidence, and it was awesome. few years after I came out, I started a team called G4 Sports, and it was made up of the best gay hockey players in the country. And we went around and we played in straight tournaments and had fun with that. And after a little while, we kind of all wanted to give back a little because we knew what it was like not being able to be ourselves and being able to have fun. And so we started doing panel discussions like this one. And it was 2011. We did one at the University of Denver. And I invited Patrick Burke, who was a scout for the Philadelphia Flyers at the time. And his brother Brendan had just gotten killed in a car accident, but he had come out as being gay two months earlier. And it was a very tragic death, but in those 2 months that he was alive, he made such a big difference out in the world because ESPN broke the news. His family was associated with the NHL, so he was the first person associated with the NHL to be known as gay. It was awesome to see, and then he died. But his brother, his family wanted to continue what Brendan had started. And so Patrick came to the University of Denver, did an unbelievable job moderating, and it was probably a couple weeks after that event where he called me up and said, "Glenn, I got this plan, and I want to start a new group." And I'm like, "All right, tell me about it." He goes, "I think I can get one player from every NHL team to make a video that says it's okay to be yourself. Respect one another. If you can play, you can play." And I'd like you to see the first video that we made.
If you can skate,
You can skate.
if you can shoot,
You can shoot. If you can score,
you can score.
I'm Brian Burke, General Manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs.
And I'm Patrick Burke, scout for the Philadelphia Flyers. Before my brother Brendan passed away in 2010, he was the first person to fight for the rights of gay athletes in professional hockey. Since his accident, our family has fought hard to carry on his legacy and ensure that LGBT athletes around the world are afforded equal opportunity, judged only by their talent, character, and work ethic in their sport.
We're now joined by hockey players from around the world supporting my son Brendan's simple message.
If you can play,
you can play.
if you can play, you can play.
If you can play,
You can play.
So that video was our rollout about 4.5 years ago today. It played on NBC. It was a Sunday like today. The New York Rangers were playing the Boston Bruins. In between periods, they played the video in front of 3 million people. And what a rollout it was. It was just unbelievable to see that. And that was the start of what we got going on here. So you probably sort of know the message, but our message is very simple. All athletes, like you guys here today, should be judged based on your heart, your talent, your determination, your skill, not your sexual orientation, your race, or religion, or any other discriminatory factors. It's a real simple message. It doesn't matter who you love, as long as you can be a good teammate and show respect. Also, making locker rooms safe for all athletes rather than places of fear, slurs, and bullying. So at this point, I'd like to introduce our panel, because we got some great athletes here to kind of tell their stories about what it was like playing sports and being a gay or lesbian or bi or transgender. Andrew Goldstein, a good friend of mine and a G-Force player as well. Andrew is the first openly gay male athlete to play professional sport. He was a goaltender for the Long Island Lizards of the Major League Lacrosse. He's also been an ESPN lacrosse analyst and is a former 2-time All-American from Dartmouth. He was the subject of a number of ESPN documentaries, including one last year, in which he helped a 12-year-old lacrosse player overcome fear of homophobia and suicide. Andrew is also a biology professor at UCLA studying prostate cancer. Next, Angela. Angela Hucles, everybody, president of the Women's Sports Foundation, a two-time Olympic gold medalist in Athens in 2004, Beijing in 2008. Angela also played professional soccer with the Women's United Soccer Association. She still holds the University of Virginia women's soccer record for most goals, most winning goals, and total points. She also speaks worldwide on empowerment, particularly related to women and inclusion in sport. Sam Nolemeyer, freshman at Hamilton College. I have to tell you, we did pull him away. He's been there for a week, and he flew all the way to Grand Junction to be here today. He was a little hungover when he arrived, but so Sam came out to his high school teammates in Plymouth, Massachusetts. He was a second all-team independent school league lacrosse goalie and became the first to participate in the Courage Games, an annual lacrosse game in support of LGBT athletes and straight allies. Sam's participation in the Courage Game became a turning point in his own work to end homophobia in sports. Last but not least, Darren Thomas, a standout senior hurdler for the University of Colorado track and field team. Thomas is a rarity in Division I athletics as an openly gay athlete. He is co-president for the CU Student Athlete Advisory Committee and is also involved in the LGBT group on campus. So, let's get this started, right? All right, my first question. Tell me about your sports background that I may have missed in the intro. Uh-oh. Jared?
Okay, I think it's back on now. Sports intro that I may have missed. I grew up in Texas. I was, my junior year, the 6th fastest 110-meter hurdler in the United States. My senior year, I was the 5th fastest 110 hurdler in the United States for high school. I've been a quarter finalist in the 400-meter and 110-meter hurdles. All Pac-12 team in the 400 and 110 hurdles my freshman, sophomore, and junior year, going into my last year this year.
Let's see. Well, for me, I tend to leave these out because of the standard we have for women's soccer in our country, but I also competed in 2 World Cups in 2003, 2007. We placed 3rd in those. And I also now do commentating and broadcast work currently. So I've called last year's World Cup, this past Olympics for women's soccer. And when I first started playing the sport at 7 years old, I actually played with all boys growing up.
So I grew up in a big sports family in the East Coast, outside Boston. I played hockey mostly growing up and then picked up lacrosse and football in middle school, and then lacrosse became my main sport and got recruited to play in college. And like you said, when I was a sophomore at Dartmouth, I had a great season. I was team MVP and All-American and All-Ivy League, and then I came out to my team then. So I played not 4 years of being an openly gay athlete, but 2 years in college, and then, like you said, went on to play pro lacrosse for a couple summers back in the East Coast.
Well, my athletic career is definitely not as cool, I guess, as theirs. I mean, I was not an Olympian or a D1 athlete, but I definitely played pretty much every sport there was, whether that was football to horseback riding to playing squash now, but then really picked up lacrosse in around 8th grade, and I got recruited to play. Here I am.
Okay, thank you for that. what was it like, if you could explain to the audience, being gay, lesbian, and playing sports, maybe before you were out and then when you came out? Andrew?
All right. So I probably knew I was gay at some level since I was 5 or 6 years old. So that's a long time to keep that secret inside, kind of like Glenn. And you really start in high school. You're hanging out with your team a lot, and you're in the locker room, and so that's where you start to hear a lot of homophobic slurs, and not necessarily in an aggressive sense, but just in a that's so gay, or fag this, or things that you just hear day in, day out that don't seem like a big deal to anybody else, but seem like a big deal to you if you're holding that. And so I would say I was pretty depressed on the inside for many, many years, listening to words that I heard in the locker room. And I would always, go home at night and feel really bad, like, wow, no one would accept me if they knew who I really was. And then I'd get on the field and I'd take all that energy out and just be the best athlete I could be. And when we're training and we're running, I would put all of that energy into that. And when I was lucky enough a few years later to come out, it was unbelievable to not have to be lying to my teammates who are college athletes. Your teammates are your best friends, and they're the ones you spend all your time around. And to be able to just be myself was such a huge relief, and just a lot more fun to get out and play on the field.
Yeah, I think the best way I can describe it, I wound up coming out in my first year of college, but there's almost like this invisible cloud that always surrounded me, this bit of fear. And I think the main place it manifested was just socially. In conversations with my teammates, with my friends, always had a little bit of this fear that, when we start talking about, our boyfriends, people that we were dating, I definitely became even more reserved in those conversations and kind of started to dread those social interactions for fear of being outed. And I just wasn't comfortable at that point with my own sexuality and who I was as a person. And so it wasn't until really college and through college and just really discovering who I was, being okay with that identity, that I started becoming a little bit more free. Telling a few teammates, gaining support and trust through them, and really starting to kind of lift that cloud away. And I think, once I fully felt okay was when I started performing even better, being able to, feel free in my expression on the field, but also just being a little bit more open in conversation, being able to talk to people more freely, and just understanding that I could be myself and that was okay as well.
Okay, I have another question, and this is one of those tough ones, but a lot of athletes may be concerned about if someone's gay and we're in the locker room, like what happens? Sam, to you, when you came out to your high school friends, can you tell the audience did anything change in the locker room?
So I actually came out twice. So I went to public school for 2 years and then went to private school. First of all, in public school, no one really changes in the locker room, so it wasn't really much of a big deal. But in private school, things are a lot more open. And I think, once I kind of... So actually, all right, so it kind of gets complicated. So people at that school already knew that I was gay before I came out because someone from my old school had told someone. So everyone had known. So I felt like everyone kind of glanced at me because they weren't quite sure. But then once I came out, I think everyone just kind of was like whatever, because I also change, I also have to shower, and then just kind of pretty contiguous.
So no big deal?
It wasn't a big deal for me.
Okay. Jaron?
I would say the only time it was a really big deal for me was when I was in 7th grade. I went to a different school, and there were identical twins on my basketball team. One was gay. He wasn't, I don't think, gay at the time, or out as gay at the time, but he is out to me now, and he's openly gay, and his identical twin brother. And his twin brother actually went around and told everybody on our basketball team that we were a couple. And I wasn't out at the time, and we were like ridiculed in the locker room, and I ended up transferring schools because I hated it so much. But being teased in the locker room or being told that I had to wait until everybody was done showering because they didn't want me around really affected my time at that school. It was miserable. I hated it. I hated my life. I hated my teammates. I hated my coaches for not helping me or standing up for me. And I hated every aspect of that. And that translated into my game also, just how the locker room culture was. Because no one would call me a fag out on the court, but when I shot a ball, I was like, oh, did my follow through? Did I put my pinky out? Did I look gay? Like, was that a bad thing? Did I make a bad play because I'm gay? Or how did that make me look? And it was solely based on what happened in the locker room. So that was a big deal for me.
Goldie?
I would say, for me, when I came out, there were just not a lot of examples, if any, of an openly gay male team sport athlete in college, and so it was a learning experience for all of us. And I think the guys on the team who supported me were vocal, and if there were people who didn't support me, the guys who did support me sort of took care of it behind the scenes, so I didn't have to worry about it. And we were all kind of just figuring out how to deal with it, but no one ever made me feel excluded after that. Like we heard in the introduction, a lot of them apologized for things that they said over the years that they realize now, or they realized at the time, were hurtful to me, and they had no idea when they said that they were. And so I think it was an opportunity for everyone to kind of figure out, oh wow, all right, this is something we have to become more comfortable with. We have to think about our words, and the team kind of rallied around me in many ways.
Angela, this question's for you. How did your coach handle it when you came out? Was there changes in the locker room? Like what happened with the coach, and how did he handle it, or how did she handle it?
I actually never really came out to my coach. I assume that she probably did know at some point, but I think it was really more from the coach's perspective, just kind of setting that standard from the beginning in terms of, how we were supposed to be responsible for our own actions. Being a part of the soccer team, being a part and affiliated with the university. I think for my teammates, it was a process because some people started to know, some people I didn't tell. I didn't have a big coming out. I think for me, I never really wanted and felt like it was necessary to come out because I felt like that was a personal choice. I think now my perspective on that has changed a little bit because I think there's power in coming out in order to show other people that, that you're proud of it. And for those who maybe don't have a voice, they can see other positive examples. But I think within my team culture, having teammates that I knew I could trust and come out to bit by bit and slowly was really something that allowed me to process my own identity and allowed me to feel accepted. And I think fortunately because there was a good culture kind of established through the coaching staff, I felt safe to do that and knowing that my teammates would support me.
Thank you. All right, at this point, we're going to watch a video.
I love the game of basketball. I've been playing since I was in the 7th grade. In order to respect the game, you got to respect your teammates, all of them. No matter their race, religion, or whether they're straight or gay, this is about helping your team win.
I was born in Colorado, and when I'm on the court, I'm representing my school, my city, and my state.
If you can pass, you can play.
If you can shoot, you can shoot. If you can play, then you can play.
Colorado, if you can play, you can play.
Let's maybe just do one more to do the hockey.
For us, it's about respect. Respect for our teammates, our fans, and the game.
If we can respect each other, we can become a better team.
Doesn't matter who you are or where you're from, on this team, we are all one family. For the Galaxy, everyone contributes and everyone matters.
We pledge to make the locker room a safe place for everyone.
We pledge to support each other on and off the field.
We pledge to support LGBT athletes and fans.
We pledge to create a safe and inclusive environment for everyone who plays, coaches, or works for the Los Angeles Galaxy.
On behalf of our team, we pledge to support the You Can Play project and all the LA Galaxy community.
If you can pass, you can pass.
If you can score, you can score.
If you can coach, you can coach.
If you can kick, you can kick.
If you can play, you can play.
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 All right, we got some more questions here for the panel. Sam, what should straight teammates know about gay teammates?
I think the number one thing is that we want to win just as much as they do. And I think when there's a great family environment on the team, everyone feels included and everyone wants to participate just as much as the others, and they all want to win. So yeah.
Okay. Jaron?
Yeah, definitely what he was saying. Just whenever you have that family atmosphere, you work better together. We have a common goal. We're not any different because of what happens outside of the track or outside of your playing surface. We want the same things as you do, so we just want to be treated fairly.
Angela?
And I think just to elaborate on what they've already stated, I think one thing that was hugely important for me, especially because, that it's a process. I shared yesterday that my parents are very loving and supportive, and when I came out to them, I knew that they would still love me and support me, but it took them time to get used to the idea after I came out. And so just as much it's a process for us and and how our society treats us and wanting to have that support, just understanding that it's going to take time for us to understand ourselves. And so I think as gay athletes, knowing that for straight athletes it might be the same thing as well. So the importance of having an ally, someone who's actively speaking up on your behalf so that we as gay athletes don't have to do it ourselves, I think is hugely important. So for me in college, trying to get comfortable myself and really kind of leaning on the support of my straight ally teammates was critical and really crucial to my experience on that team. And I think for anyone to be able to use their voice, especially for those who aren't able to, for whatever reason, is you could really be literally saving someone's life.
Goldie, hold on. I got a question from the crowd. It's a good one, so I want to get to it. This is to Goldie. What advice do you have for the people who have a difficult time coming out and those who contemplate suicide? What advice can you give them?
Obviously, you look around the room. If there are a few of you in here who feel alone for different reasons, whether it's because you're gay or you're going through something, look around the room. You have a room full of support. In the back wall, there's just this line of coaches and support staff who care about you. So no matter what you're going through, you definitely are not alone. And the great thing about being an athlete is that we have that opportunity to leave it all behind. Every time we leave the locker room, we step on the court or the ice or the field or wherever you compete in the, where do you do bass fishing? In the river. Wherever you are, that's your place to just be you. You leave it all behind, whether you've got a test, whether you got dumped by your boyfriend or girlfriend, so whether you're gay, you have an opportunity to just be an athlete and be free and use that to get you through. And you know, like Wade said in that video, if you need to talk to someone, try to find one person who you feel, for whatever reason, will be your ally. And you know, look, I think it's important. We're not up here talking about all of you gay athletes need to come out, or if you suspect there's someone on your team who might be gay, you need to do something to help them. That's not what this is about. That's a separate thing. We're here today to say, you know, there are things that you can do to be thoughtful about the words you say, the way you behave, the assumptions you make, that can make life easier for the people on your team, the people in your community, the people who you might not know are going through a tough time.
Okay. We got another question from the crowd. Thank you. Keep them coming. What's the best way to support a gay teammate? Jaron?
I would say by taking time to think about the language that you use is a huge tool that you have that you might not even know that you have at your disposal. Whenever you're talking to your teammates, if you're on an all-male team or if you're an all-female team, say, yeah, you can invite your boyfriends or girlfriends to the party, or are you seeing someone, instead of saying, are you seeing a girl, or are you seeing a guy, are you dating a guy, are you dating a girl? Just using more inclusive language is really important, and it makes all the difference in the world to one of your teammates that you might not know really appreciates that use of language. And then just if someone, whether it be a fan or a teammate or a student on campus or a coach even, if someone says something that may make you or your teammate feel uncomfortable, don't hesitate to stand up and say, hey, that's not really cool, and this is why. This is not appropriate or not inclusive, and I would appreciate it if you took the time to listen to why it's not.
Sam?
Yeah, so I think kind of the most important part is obviously verbalizing your support and then following through with it. Actually, this just happened to me recently. So I told the incoming freshman at Hamilton College, the incoming lacrosse freshman, that I was gay. I just sent the article that was written. And one kid texted me on the side and was like, oh, I really support you. I come from a place where that's totally cool. I'm totally got your back, blah, blah, blah. But ironically, he's the one that uses the most homophobic language. He calls people fags and gay all the time. So I think that's kind of like a stab in the back to me. So I think verbalizing your support and then actually following through with it and being active with it is definitely really important.
Glenn, can I add to that too?
Please.
I just want to kind of reiterate too, just, you know, it doesn't matter if you're a captain of your team, you know, everybody has the opportunity to display leadership. And I think I just recently had experience, and again, I said it was a process even with my family. My family likes to do group text messaging as their way of communication. My parents, my cousins, sibling, everyone's on this group text, and recently had a group text where one of my family members made a homophobic comment. And so I basically was looking at my phone, and in that moment, really wishing and wanting and desiring someone outside of myself to make a comment back in support. And this person's very loving, loves me, love him. But again, you know, being able to not always have to be the one to feel like I have to say something. I think, you know, being a part of You Can Play and being in these types of forums has actually helped me develop my own voice. And so I was the one who made a comment back and said, that wasn't okay. And, also trying to be an example to my younger cousins on this group text. But I think just really being active in your support. You don't have to do it all the time, but I think just from a personal level, personal experience, it means so much when it's not coming from yourself and you can see another teammate really being that voice and support and, really displaying leadership.
All right, we got some great questions. We're going to try to get to all of them, but we do have a time limit. But keep them coming, so I'm going to pick out the best ones. All right. Were you ever attracted to a teammate? If so, how did you handle this situation? It's a couple questions, and we'll go through everybody. What would be the best way for someone to come out to his or her team, individual or team? And did your parents support your decision? So, Angela? Goldie, why don't you go?
All right, well, I'll pick the first one because it's hard for me to remember 3 in a row. When I played college sports, I treated the locker room like, this is a sacred environment. These are my teammates. We are all trying to commit to become the best team we can be, so when we get on the field, we can beat the opponents. And if there was any sexual attraction going on in a subconscious place, it was turned off when it came to my team, and that was important to me. At the time, there weren't a lot of other openly gay athletes, and I certainly wasn't going to be one that made trouble for my teammates, and so it was very important to me, and I can see Sam kind of shaking his head over here, that none of my teammates ever thought that I was hitting on them or anything like that. That's, that just doesn't happen. It's like your teammates are your brothers, they're your family. That's, that that doesn't go on there.
Okay. What would be the best way for someone to come out to his or her team? Sam?
Well, I mean, I did it at Hamilton just by sending a text in the group message. I think kind of downplaying it as much as possible and just making it like a quick thing. Hope this doesn't change anything, guys. Still one of the boys, that kind of stuff. Just kind of makes it quick and concise and not a huge deal. I think sometimes when people make it a huge deal, people say, oh, that's annoying, blah, blah, blah. But I think just making it short and concise and showing that you're still part of the team and you still have the common goal is definitely a good way to do it.
I think it's a personal decision how you would want to come out because, one, you're dealing with your own emotions and thoughts on it, and I think it's, what makes you the most comfortable, and also, evaluating, your teammates and what you think would be the best way. You know your team, your teammates and the culture, so what you think the best way would be for them as well. So I think it's like twofold, your comfort level and also the comfort of those around you.
Okay, thank you. And then, did your parents support your decision? So maybe Jaron.
So I came out to my mother when I was 8 years old. I told my mom, I was like, bisexual, and she was like, I don't really think you know what that means. I was like, well, I have crushes on guys and girls. Is that not what it is? And she was like, I think you're thinking of friendship. So I was like, okay, like whatever, and went and did whatever 8-year-olds do, and then come my junior year of high school, I came out to some friends, and then my mom heard someone make a homophobic comment, and she actually came up to my room. I was about to be a senior in high school, and she just asked, oh, I heard someone say that comment. I knew that you had problems with that in the past. Was that a problem for you? Did it bother you? And I was like, oh, well, I am gay, so it was kind of offensive, but it's no big deal. I've been dealing with it. And she was like, oh, okay. And my dad, I actually came out to him on Father's Day. I was like, woohoo, happy Father's Day. The truth. And he was really supportive. He was actually kind of mad that I told other people before him. So my family was very supportive, and I'm blessed to have that. I have some friends that aren't so fortunate, and being in such a great family with such a great support system has been huge for me.
Okay, we have some more questions, so I'm just going to go to the next one. This is important. I'm confused on how queer is classified. Could that be clarified, just so people know what might be offensive? Jared.
I actually really like that question. So LGBTQ, IAP, there are a lot of letters that go into that acronym. Sometimes some get left off. Sorry? I is intersex, A is asexual, and P is pansexual. There are lots of identities. Queer is kind of an all-encompassing, if you will. It's an umbrella term. It kind of covers gay, transgender, bi, it covers gender identities, sexual orientations, and romantic preferences. So if you don't know how someone identifies, but you know that they fall somewhere in that spectrum, and you know that they do identify as one of those things, but you're not necessarily sure, identifying them as queer is appropriate. But back to my little linguistic spiel of the day, calling someone queer is different than identifying someone as queer. Those are two very different things that can be used as a derogatory term, and it can be used as an identifying term. It's just how you use it.
Okay, thank you. Another question from the crowd. Do you wish you came out sooner, now knowing how it's turned out?
Yes.
That's it. Goldie?
Well, for me, I think I came out at the perfect time. It took me a long time to figure out, was I ever going to live as a gay person? So I just, at the time, there were a lot of people who you'd get through college and then maybe you'd go run away to some other city and then you could actually be yourself. So I think if I had come out in high school, it would have been a disaster. I probably wouldn't have gotten recruited to play in college and had all of that experience. But now, through being out and getting to connect with kids that are a lot younger, and if you look up the Courage Game, you see this story of this kid who's 12 years old, and I was able to kind of reach out and be a mentor to him when he was going through a really tough time. And I look at this kid who has adults who are openly gay and played their sport, and he sees models of healthy individuals who are gay, and I'm definitely excited for him to get to live his whole life now, not having to hold something so important inside. And so in another time, it would have been nice to come out earlier, but for me, I think it worked out properly.
All right, there's another question here. Let's get this one. It sort of falls in that. Did you feel like you owed it to yourself or your teammates to come out? And do you feel that LGBT athletes feel obligated to announce their sexuality? Angela?
I've touched on it a little bit, but in terms of, I think I've changed my opinion on coming out. I think, again, it's a very personal choice, but I've found that seeing other models and examples has been really empowering. And I think for me, I always felt like, well, a heterosexual person doesn't come out as being straight, so why should I have to come out as, being gay? But seeing more people come out has been, I think, something that I've realized is, helping to be a voice for someone else who might not have it. I think I did, in terms of the first question, owing it to myself, my teammates, I think I owed it to myself so that I could just live more freely. One of my favorite stories is a former teammate of mine, Megan Rapinoe, plays currently on the U.S. Women's National Team. One of her really good friends, Lori Lindsay, who's also an out athlete, had a conversation, and it was right before the World Cup, not this past one, but 4 years ago, and essentially just had this conversation with Megan Rapinoe and said, you just need to come out. Megan had been out to her teammates and close friends and family, but essentially saw Rapinoe struggling on the field. And so Megan Rapinoe made this announcement. She came out publicly and had probably one of the best World Cups of her entire career. And so I think being able to do that and just you have that weight lifted off of you, I think that's the element that I owe to myself, to be able to live that freely and be who I was without any other fear.
And like Angela said earlier, straight people don't have to come out, and it doesn't have to be a big deal. In the same way, if you don't feel like you want to come out in a huge way, I didn't come out to a huge way to my college teammates. In the first few weeks of school, I got asked out on a date, and when my teammates were like getting all excited and coming into my dorm room and like, oh hey, like I heard you have a date, who you going out with? I was like, oh yeah, Tom from down the hall, and they're like, oh cool. So I was just like, it's a very casual way to not really come out, but just let them in. Didn't really have to say, oh, I'm gay. They just kind of got that from me being honest in that way and not really having to make a big deal about it. And through that process, my team has gotten a lot of education from me, but it's definitely come from a learning experience in that kind of way.
All right, that's awesome. All right, maybe we'll play one more video, let you think about it. The hockey one? Yeah, that one.
Respect talent. Respect heart.
Respect skill.
That includes teammates and fans who may be from a different race or religion,
a different background, or sexual orientation.
We'll play with anyone who can help us win, and we ask our fans to respect the game by respecting everyone on the ice and everyone in the stands.
If you can skate, you can skate.
If you can score, you can score.
If you can play, you can play.
Colorado, if you can play, you can play.
We branched out a little. We had a couple music bands play, so this is pretty cool. Red Rocks.
Ready? Okay. My name is Macklemore. I'm a musician, and things are really good for us right now. I have some brand new gloves with fringe and fur on them. We're creating music and traveling all around the world, and life is good. We've also got great friends and family, and some of them are gay. You know someone who's gay. Athletes, musicians, people in your life, they just haven't told you yet. You know what? It doesn't matter. It could be baseball, football, basketball, soccer, piano, an instrument. If you have the skills, talent, and heart, you can play. Don't let being gay hold you back. If you're straight, do not hold others back. Anti-gay language has no place in sports or music. If you can play, you can play.
And if you're liking our videos, we have a couple hundred more on our website. So thanks for watching these so far. So maybe let's go back to the athletes. Do you guys have any final comments?
I would just say, we've mentioned a few times that when an athlete will find out that one of their teammates is gay or lesbian or something that they didn't know, and they later feel terrible about the things they said, it's a lot easier to correct that ahead of time and not have to feel like you contributed to making someone that you care about feel really bad about themselves. So maybe that's a little bit of guilt, but if that's a motivating factor and that's something you can take away, then I would say that's important. And on top of that, just think about the assumptions that you make. And we talked about talking to a guy and saying, do you have a girlfriend? Well, you already made an assumption, and that already could be excluding someone. So just think a little bit extra.
And I think part of our goal of being here is really to just help foster conversation. Hopefully this doesn't come across as, us being experts in telling you guys things. I'm sure a lot of this you already know, but I think it's a way to create a conversation and not to, have fear around talking about these issues, and also not feeling like someone's going to be attacked in the moment if they have a question and just want to be more educated on LGBT issues. So I think it's part of fostering the conversation. Hopefully there's something that maybe you're thinking about differently now, whether you're gay, LGBT, or straight. And I think part of that is just, continuing the conversation to, make safe spaces no matter where you are, whether it's here, after you're far, far away from here and in, the outside world, it's going to continue. So hopefully, I know I've learned some things. I think it's just the evolution where we are today as a society is so much different than when I was growing up in high school and college, a few years older than these guys. But for someone to be 8 years old and to have that conversation with a parent, I think it blows my mind. So, we're starting to do these things differently. And so I think, I appreciate all of you being here today. I'm not sure if it was mandatory or not, but just being here and having your presence here is a big deal.
Yeah, definitely what Angela's saying, like fostering that conversation. That can be done in front of a team, or it can be done behind closed doors. If you have a spare second and you have a gay teammate or a lesbian teammate, and you just want to ask how you can be a better ally, because we're not perfect. I have to remind myself to be a better ally to my trans friends sometimes. And just educating yourself and never stopping your education. Make sure that you are always asking questions and willing to open your mind. Just be open to different things and different ideas, because not everybody sees the world the same way that you do, and that doesn't mean that they're wrong or that you're wrong. It just means that you're different, and you need to come to common grounds and still work towards your goals the best of your abilities.
And one last thing, I think a perfect example of kind of being an active ally in a different sense is with the word retard. I feel like that word has since in the last few years kind of gone away. Not a lot of people use it anymore. And I think it was chill with that, relax with that, I'm not cool with you saying that kind of stuff. When people would say that word, is the same thing that you can apply to this. And I think just kind of the quick, kind of not a big deal, kind of chill with that. When people say homophobic stuff, I think could help tremendously. So.
Okay, thank you guys. So I'm going to kind of finish up with a couple comments. First, I definitely want to thank John Marshall, Coach McKinney, and Chris Mort for bringing us here and bringing this message to you guys. It's afternoons like this that change minds and save lives. Small steps such as elimination of homophobic slurs in the locker room, vocal support from coaches, from teammates, administrators, can make a huge impact. Any action, no matter how small or how insignificant they may seem, can make a huge difference. Robert Kennedy once said, "Few will have the greatness to bend history itself, but each of us can work to change a small portion of events, and in the total of all those acts will be written the history of this generation." The You Can Play project is fully committed to ensuring that the history of this generation will be one of acceptance, tolerance, and love. I would ask that each of you, as you leave here today, reflect on the small changes that you can make in your lives that will help a family member, a classmate, a friend, a teammate in your life to feel safe. Thank you again for coming.